Joining us for a conversation is Brett Richards of Goldshore Resources. Mr. Richards, thank you for joining us today, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Maurice. Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, it's a pleasure to be speaking with you today as Goldshore Resources continues on its path to creating the next Tier 1 asset in Ontario, Canada. Before we begin, Mr. Richards, please introduce us to Goldshore Resources and the exciting opportunity the company presents to shareholders.
Yeah, absolutely. So Goldshore has 100% ownership in the Moss Lake property, and there's a lot of history with the Moss Lake property. Historically, there's been a lot of drilling, over 150,000 meters. It has a historical resource of 1.5 million ounces of indicated and 2.5 million ounces of inferred resources, of a historical resource. So what we're trying to do is, certainly we have to go through the validation process of that, but we are doing kind of step outs from that, and we're trying to understand the extent of the mineralization in this region so that we can, as you said earlier, so that we can start to put the framework together of becoming a Tier 1 asset in Ontario.
Speaking of step outs, Goldshore Resources currently is embarked on a 100,000 meter drill program on the Moss Lake. And since we last spoke in July, Goldshore Resources has released a number of significant updates for shareholders. Let's get everyone up to speed, beginning with some very exciting step out drilling results issued last week. Mr. Richards, what can you share with us?
Sure. So, the results have been coming out for about 10 months now. And you're right on. We have assigned kind of a 100,000 meter, I'll say, quantity as far as the drill program goes. But it all started with a very extensive geophysical survey over the property, and from there it guides us into drill targets. It guides us into the historical resource I spoke of earlier. And it guides us as to kind of other opportunities, certainly at Moss Lake, and then other targets we have at Coldstream, at North Coldstream, at Iris Lake, and down in the southwest at Hamlin. So we've been drilling now for about 8 months, 9 months, pretty steady. We're getting up to near the halfway point of our 100,000 meter program. We ramped up in the spring and ramped up and back down in May, simply because of the capital market dynamics. But the results that we're putting out are exceptional. And I think the takeaway from our results is this. We think that there is higher grade shoots and higher grade zones that weren't identified previously, which may allow us to start to focus on those areas with respect to a higher grade, possibly up to 2 grams, a higher grade starter pit area when we go to do a study on this. And secondly, the step out zones and the parallel zones, I think, are extremely encouraging, because that is going to kind of certainly add some bulk and some size to this overall mineralized region with the historic resource. But when we're drilling in undrilled areas and we get some of the results like we showed a week ago, 60, 70, 80, 90 meters with a gram 2, a gram 3 in them. Those are very significant, and I think we're going to see more of the same. We're going to see more of the step out holes in future releases, and that's exciting, because it's really going to add some quantum to this.
Oh, it certainly is, as Goldshore Resources seems to have caught a tiger by its tail. The step-out drilling coincides with a number of high-grade mineralization that were announced from the main zone last month. Can you fill us in on the details?
Yeah, and we hit a number of high-grade areas that were previously unidentified, and I think what this is giving us focus on is where we can infill the historic drilling and the historic resource, where we can do some infill drilling and some verification drilling of old results in these high-grade areas, and also trying to step out and see if we can add on to the region with the regional knowledge of mineralization, adding on to that understanding, or building on a much larger footprint than was previously identified with the historical drilling, I think is all value creating for Goldshore shareholders.
I think you've somewhat addressed it, but I want to get some clear, definitive answer here. Can these results accurately represent the position of high grades within a resource model?
Absolutely. And I think we're taking the approach that we're not going to use such I'll say a bland top cut. We're going to we're going to use probably a higher top cut, maybe a 30-gram top cut, whereby it will allow us to understand these high grade areas much, much better. And that'll transpose into, prioritizing kind of mining areas when we get to that stage. And we still have to go through, understanding the quantum of the resource. So we have to do a resource estimation later on this year or into next year when we get much further down the road in our drill program, and then extrapolating that resource into what we will look at as far as the PEA goes. So, and the market is very let's call it finicky right now. Some days they like. In previous years, they like these big scale tier one projects. In other times, and like now, where interest rates are high and costs are high and fuel is high, maybe we have to look at a much smaller starter project with the scope of a much larger resource behind it. And I think that might be prudent as well. Don't know where this takes us this time next year when we start to do the PEA, but it will certainly be interesting. And these high grade zones are really going to drive the bus on this.
Let's discuss expansion. As Goldshore Resources announced last month an earn-in to the Iris and Vanguard properties, why is Goldshore Resources interested in these properties, and what are the details of the option agreement?
So we are going to earn in with White Metals on the Vanguard and Iris properties, and we're very interested in them. They're contiguous with our property. They are a long strike from where we call Iris and Iris Lake and Coldstream. They continue, the mineralization continues off our property onto these properties. We know that from our geophysical survey. We will probably fly a survey over these concessions just to validate that the geophysics are what we think they are, and then we'll probably start a drill program, maybe late this year. Again, we're a little constrained. We've got all these priorities we want to do, and the capital markets being where they are, and our share price being at 32 cents or 31 cents. I really don't want to raise a whole bunch of money at this share price. So we've just taken our foot off the pedal a bit. I get it. It does extend out our strategy a little longer than normal, but that's not uncommon when we get into these economic times. So I'm really excited about understanding that a bit better and getting some drill holes up into this area. I think this is really going to be a very, very large resource or potential resource in the near future, simply because of the work we've done so far and the historical work we've done. We acquired. I think this is going to be a very large project one day.
Speaking of resource, do you have any updates for shareholders when we may have a release?
Yeah, I think we're going to continue to put news out on our drill holes over the next kind of 6 months. When we get to running the geological model, and we're doing a metallurgical model as well, I think when we're in the place to with enough data sets to do that estimation with proper kind of bulk density sampling, so we have a very, very accurate resource model, not a sketchy inferred model that makes a lot of assumptions and a lot of kriging. I think what we're see is a very, very accurate model. And best guess, Q1 next year we'll be looking at doing it, and then Q2 we'll be looking at what we do with that model in the form of a PEA. So it's a little pushed out simply because of we're back to 2 rigs now, and maybe the market is conducive to us going back to 3 or 4 or 5 rigs later on this year, or maybe into next year. And we'll do that, because this is all capital market driven. It is not results driven, because the results are great, and the opportunity has never been better. And I'll say the entry point for investors getting into Goldshore has never been better. So this is, I am, so committed to seeing this through and creating value for our shareholders. And we will do that. It's just going to take a little longer than we first talked about, and that's kind of out of my control.
Well, I second everything you've just referenced here, sir. Leaving the Moss Lake, let's get into some numbers. Mr. Richards, please provide the capital structure for Goldshore Resources.
Yeah, we still have about 145 million shares outstanding and some warrants, 5 million warrants. We've got around $6.5–7 million in the bank, and we're burning less than $1 million. So we've got quite a bit of runway as far as working capital goes for our program. So we're well positioned in that regard, and we have actually tightened everything as much as possible to preserve capital in these kind of uncertain capital market times. But I am starting to see the market make that turn. Whether the bottom has arrived and we're starting to a trajectory on the way up, I think we're starting to see some of that in sector wise and generally. I think we're starting to see that in the capital markets. We're seeing some strength. Commodities, though, are lagging, and gold is certainly lagging. But I think we're starting to see some strength. So looking forward to a really strong end of quarter and Q4 as we get into conference season. We get to Beaver Creek, and we get to Denver, and then we get to Europe for the European gold shows in late fall.
Well, you may have stolen the thunder for my next question. What would you like to say to shareholders? Did you miss anything there?
Yeah, a good point. I really do think that there's never been a better opportunity to get into Goldshore than now. It's like in golf. The most important shot you take is your next one, and I think your investment decision is a Goldshore is your next one and into Goldshore, and now has never been a better time. So I think from that standpoint, we're going to see a lot of news flow over the next 6 months. We're going to see regular news flow. There's going to be lots of catalysts for understanding kind of where we're going to get to when we do the resource estimation. There will be no surprises. I think the market will have a really good idea of where this is going at the end of the day, and it's extremely positive, and I'm really excited about it.
Mr. Richards, for someone that wants to learn more about Goldshore Resources, please share the website address.
Sure. It's www.goldshoreresources.com. And my direct access, you'll see it on our website. You'll see my email. You'll see my phone number. I am very, very interested in talking to investors who are maybe on the cusp of making an investment or who are invested and want updates. I'm always very, very accessible and very close to our shareholder network. So I am happy to take those calls. I'm happy to make those Zoom invites, and look forward to the future.
Mr. Richards, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today. Wishing you and Goldshore Resources the absolute best, sir.
Thanks, Maurice.
The information presented on Proven and Probable is provided for educational and informational purposes only, without any express or implied warranty of any kind, including warranties of accuracy, completeness, or fitness for any particular purpose. The information is not intended to be and does not constitute financial, investment, or trading advice, or any other advice. You should not make any financial, investment, or trading decision based on any of the information presented without first undertaking independent due diligence and consultation with a professional broker or competent financial advisor.